Hello, everybody. My name is Jude Fay from thisbusinessoftherapy.com. I'm here with Catherine Turgeon, and I'm going to invite Catherine to tell us a little bit about herself and her background.
Oh, hi, Jude. I'm very happy to be here today. I am here talking about caregivers and the emotional side of being a caregiver. And how I got interested in that is that I've been involved in volunteer work with people who help the elderly and the frail remain in their homes longer through their volunteer work, going and helping in various ways. And having had much contact with the caregivers, people who are in charge of their daily needs once they become not able to do it for themselves. My background includes a lot of energy work, Reiki, emotional freedom technique, and matrix re-imprinting, to name a few. And I'm also a certified life coach and a former teacher. So I believe that this has all helped me to be able to deliver this information to the people who need it in a way that makes it possible for them to be able to work, to take care of some of these ups and downs of caregiving for themselves.
And it sounds like it's an area that you feel quite strongly about, Catherine.
Oh, I do. I really, just based on my own personal experience as well, because I was in a caregiving role for my mother-in-law for 3 years, I have experienced firsthand the ups and downs of being in that role, how the emotions of not being able to take care of things for yourself when you're trying to balance things, and what it can do to your everyday life and some of the emotions that come up around those experiences.
So, Catherine, can you tell us why it's important to pay attention to those emotions that you mentioned?
Well, when a person ignores the emotions that are coming up for them, and not ignore them necessarily, but maybe try to suppress them, by not addressing our feelings, it creates a perfect environment for illness to develop. And our immune system might weaken, and we can become more susceptible to viruses, colds, and flus, and our bodies become inflamed, especially if one of the emotions that we're suppressing is anger. And once that inflammation starts, it can cause aching joints, back pain, migraine. And the stress, can cause you to be unable to sleep or sleep too much, gaining and losing weight. All kinds of things can show up. Every emotion on the scale, it's no matter how much you love the person you're helping, at times that intensity of doing that can bring up all kinds of thoughts that then really are expressing that whatever emotion it is. Things like if you're telling yourself, oh, this isn't fair, or no one appreciates what I do anyway, I can't take this anymore. Those are all expressions of feeling resentful, angry, frustrated, overwhelmed. And then once you experience that feeling and things die down a little bit, you can actually feel guilty for feeling those things to begin with.
What are some of the aspects of the caregiver's role that might influence their feelings about doing this important job?
To see if there are any suppressed feelings that might be contributing negatively, a caregiver can answer the questions that I'm going to go over briefly now, and then we'll go into detail later. One aspect is, did I take on the role willingly, or was it just expected of me? That can certainly influence how you feel about the role that you're in. Do you have the support of others, or do you feel like you are on your own with the responsibilities? Another one is, are finances a concern, or is there enough money to cover medical expenses and respite care if possible? And then, do you have a good relationship with the person you care for? Is this person accepting of the help, or is every little thing a struggle to get done? And then finally, asking yourself, does my role as caregiver affect how I'm living my own life? So those are some of the aspects that can definitely influence how you're experiencing the caregiver's role.
Okay, so I can understand that those questions might be useful to explore. Is it possible that they might help the caregiver to understand the impact that doing this work might have? What's the connection there?
Well, if you ask yourself the questions and you become aware of the possibility of the influence on yourself, you'll start to look for the symptoms, and that's what your answers can show, that there might be resentment, there might be sadness or overwhelm or anger. And if in the first question, the caregiver may have thought, like, I wouldn't have to be doing this at all if she had taken better care of herself, or I wasn't even considered in this situation. And then you might start thinking, well, what kind of person would I be if I didn't step up and do this for my loved one? And the caregiver doesn't feel supported by the family member, or worse yet, questioned about how they're handling things. He or she may be running thoughts like, if I don't do this, no one else will, or I have no one to turn to. So when you start identifying those things, you can start realizing that there is an issue, and then look to how it's affecting you physically in your ability to live your own life.
So, what other factors then might contribute to the feelings that a caregiver might have about their role?
Well, in general, a caregiver may begin to feel a loss of control over their own life and over the circumstances for their loved one. That includes feeling the stress of making choices that are uncomfortable or unpopular. I mean, no one wants to have to face the situation of having to take away somebody's driver's license when they're no longer able to drive safely, or look at the possibility of having additional care in the home beyond what you're able to provide, or even go beyond that and say it's time to go into a nursing home or other facility. So, and often as a loved one's health declines, the caregiver can have a tough time accepting the seriousness of a person's condition and go into denial. Not uncommon for a caregiver to minimize the fact that their mother has fallen 2 or 3 times and just say, well, she just didn't have enough to eat that morning, or make excuses so that they don't have to deal with those things.
Is it possible that the person being cared for might also be in denial in that they might also be resisting how serious things are?
Oh, most definitely. No one wants to give up his or her independence. And of course, acknowledging that things are changing health-wise and ability-wise means having to make some changes in how you do things. And it's not easy for some people to do that because of their own past experiences and what they believe that to be meaning for their future.
How would a caregiver know if their role was having a negative impact on them? Are there any signs that caregivers should be looking out for to tell them that perhaps things aren't quite what they might seem, or that perhaps some things are being put under the radar?
Most definitely, physical symptoms show up that there is a negative impact on your life. There's some of them chronic pain, frequent illnesses, change in one's diet, either gaining or losing weight, sleep changes, either more or less, because sleeping more kind of as an escape, or less as the anxiety keeps you up, and changes in mood and having less social contact with other people can be ways you can see the effects.
What can somebody in this sort of role do to help themselves to minimize the impact? Because they probably may not have a whole lot of options in terms of the actual role that they're working with. They may not have somebody else to step in and take over. What could they do to minimize the impact of this sort of work?
Well, certainly being aware of how you're feeling, the feelings that come to the surface, and not denying that they're there. Being able to have an outlet for that is very important, either as part of a group meeting to see other people in the same situation, or getting some psychological support of family and friends. But in general, just paying attention to your own needs, taking care of your needs is taking care of your loved one, because you certainly, as the airlines always tell us, that in case of an emergency, to put your own oxygen mask on first. That's because you can't help anybody if you don't have your own needs met. And that's the same principle here. If you're feeling depleted and worn out, you won't have much to offer others. In general, self-care, looking for the support that you need. And some other suggestions I have. Even if you can't afford to hire someone, there are often local programs and volunteers who will help for respite of a loved one, and even take your person that you're caring for a ride or to the doctors, just to give you a little break from having to do everything. It doesn't have to be a big block of time, but doing so regularly can make a big difference. And actually, it's very helpful for people who are considered almost shut in because they're not able to get out as frequently, to have other interactions socially. So it's very helpful for them too. Other ways to take care of yourself: exercising helps for a lot of reasons. So does massage, and both of these will help minimize the stress that your body is holding on to and also eliminate the toxins. Trying meditation and breathing techniques. These will help calm you down and also help with focus and clarity. And I would also suggest keeping a journal of your experiences, and if possible, having the person that you are taking care of keep a journal. It gives a record of the journey that you are on with this person and provides for an outlet for your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And you can decide whether or not to share with each other, but it's often insightful to hear what the other person's feeling. They don't want to be a burden, and so they try not to call you too often. And then that becomes harder for you in some ways, because by the time you are called in, it's often a bigger problem than it would have been if you just gotten the call 2 or 3 days ago. So to be able to understand that about each other's role is very helpful. I had a client who was taking care of her mother, and she was very grateful to have a journal that her mother had kept, because she was able to really truly understand her frustrations. She had been experiencing Alzheimer's, so it was amusing in some ways to read about it, and sad because she knew things were shifting and changing for her. But it was a way for this woman to read about it and really put into perspective their time together at the end. And when she misses her mom, she's able to go back and read these things. I've already talked about the support groups, and I'm not a counselor. I'm a certified coach and energy practitioner, but I use a very effective energy therapy called emotional freedom technique, and I've seen dramatic shifts in caretakers' feelings about their role when they learn these techniques and get to the root of some of the emotions that they're feeling.
I wonder, would you be willing to give us a brief demonstration of how that technique works? Is that something we could do on the call?
Well, we can give it a shot. Do you want to be my echo here?
Sure.
Okay, let's say you're taking care of your mother and you're feeling overwhelmed and resentful that your siblings aren't pitching in as much as you would like them to. If I were to ask you how resentful or overwhelmed you're feeling by this and ask you to rate it from 0 to 10, what might you say to me?
I'm lucky enough to have a very cooperative bunch of siblings in relation to the care of my elderly mother, and we share the burden, I think, reasonably well between us. If that wasn't the case, I can imagine that on a scale of 1 to 10, I might be up there at an 8 or a 9 with resentment that other people weren't pitching in as much as I might like or expect. And yes, I certainly would be feeling overwhelmed if I had to carry the burden of that largely on my own.
It's very interesting with emotional freedom technique. It's often not the specific incident that you're in the middle of at the moment that is really the issue. You'll find that all it's really doing is triggering feelings from your past that are surfacing now for you to really be able to deal with, so that you can deal with the present situation in a clearer way. And that's what EFT does. So the resentment may not be that this, it certainly is resentment that you're having to handle this alone, but maybe that's always been the case with siblings who quote unquote got away with things. We might go through a session of EFT and discover that really the event that created this feeling for you right now stems from some childhood time that you had to deal with something that one of your siblings wouldn't deal with and left it to you.
What you seem to be saying there is that the strength of the resentment that I feel in relation to this present issue may in some way be influenced by a pattern of taking or being given responsibility or carrying more of the load in the past, and that my feelings in this moment might be influenced by that.
Yes, absolutely. And it actually magnifies.
And it doesn't mean that the feelings that I'm having now are wrong. It's just that it's useful to be able to put a bit more perspective in it, and the EFT helps us to do that.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. What it does is it helps you to understand that an event is just an event. What you're experiencing is neither good or bad. It is just there. And so what are you bringing to this event that is creating this resentment or this anger that is making it more difficult for you to just kind of go with the flow, so to speak? It is what it is for you because of your experiences in the past.
So let's just jump straight in there, and maybe you'd give us a bit of a flavour of how EFT actually works in practical terms, what somebody might expect in an EFT session with you. So we're using the example there of I'm taking care of my mother or some other elderly relative, and I'm feeling overwhelmed and resentful that my siblings aren't pitching in as I might like or expect them.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, I think it's a good idea. We can do a couple of quick rounds so you can see what might happen for you as you experience the emotional freedom technique session. So you said that your siblings are not pitching in as I would expect or as you would expect. Is there anything else about that experience that you can explain to me? What is it that's creating the resentment? They're not pitching in. Is there anything else?
There's a sense of resentment in me that I'm being taken for granted.
Mm-hmm.
That in this imaginary scenario that other people see, Jude's doing it really well, we'll just leave her to get on with that, and isn't that great, and we're all very thankful, but we don't actually have to do anything.
Well, let's use those words, and we'll do a quick couple of rounds so you can see how it works. We've got specific tapping points. This is also called tapping. You take your two fingers, either hand, both hands at the same time is fine, to tap on the meridian points same as used in Chinese acupuncture. We have a basic recipe that I will talk you through, but you can find it on the internet very easily if you need a visual to follow. But basically, you start on the side of your hand, the karate chop point, it's called. Make sure you can slap with the whole palm of the other hand. And while you're tapping on the side of your hand, you're going to create a statement that says, even though, and then you state the problem. You say, even though I have all of this resentment and overwhelm about taking care of my mother, and then you finish the statement by, but I deeply love and accept myself, so that you are balancing things out.
If you tell us where to tap and what to say, and I'll copy it.
And so I would say the phrase, and then you repeat it. That client would repeat it. Start on the side of the hand. So start with, even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about having to take care of my mother.
Even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about having to take care of my mother,
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
And we repeat that 2 more times. Even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about having to take care of my mother.
Even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about having to take care of my mother.
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
Even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about taking care of my mother.
Even though I feel this 8 to 9 resentment about taking care of my mother.
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
I still deeply love and appreciate myself.
Now, I would probably spend more time in refining that statement to be more specific and detailed by asking you where you feel it in your body when we talk about the resentment, what that feeling is like. We might talk about the shape or color or whatever comes to mind so that the more specific we can become, the more effective results we get. So we'll just use just a few phrases that I got from you earlier, and I'm just going to go through now the points. I'm going to start at the inner point of the eyebrow near the nose and tap on that with 2 fingers. I'm tired of people not pitching in.
I'm tired of people not pitching in.
Outer eye at the end of the eyebrow. I resent having to do everything myself.
I resent having to do everything myself.
Under the eye, on that bone right under your eye, and say, it's always me.
It's always me.
Now, under the nose, on your Cupid's bow point, no one really appreciates what I do.
No one really appreciates what I do.
Under the lip, in that little crease there, I'm taken for granted.
I'm taken for granted.
I'm going to tap on that collarbone point and say, I do everything so well.
I do everything so well.
And now under the arm, about at the bra line for women and maybe 5 inches below the armpit for a man, you say, I wish I didn't do things so well.
I wish I didn't do things so well.
Okay, top of the head. Then people wouldn't expect it from me.
Then people wouldn't expect it from me.
Inner eye. I have all this resentment because of the responsibility I hold.
I have all of this resentment because of the responsibility I hold.
Outer eye. I don't want all of this responsibility.
I don't want all of this responsibility.
Under the eye. It's always me.
It's always me.
Under the nose. Why do people always expect me to handle everything?
Why do people always expect me to handle everything?
Under the lip. Don't I have a life?
Don't I have a life?
Collarbone. I just don't seem to matter.
I just don't seem to matter.
Under the arm. No one's pitching in to make it easier for me.
No one's pitching in to make it easier for me.
Top of the head. And I really do resent that.
And I really do resent that.
Okay, so I would stop, take a deep breath, see if anything had shifted. Maybe you're not feeling an 8 to a 9 of resentment. Maybe nothing's changed, but you've come up with some other aspect of it. Maybe you realize, well, it's always been like this. Maybe that once you've done that tapping and your emotions are freer to flow, suddenly you say, wait a minute, I remember this experience I had with my brother when he was supposed to take out the garbage every week, and he never did it, and he got away with it. And then I was the one who was sitting in the kitchen, and I had to take it out. And why was I made to do that? You never know. It could feel so trivial that you wouldn't even identify it as the source. But when you start doing the tapping, you begin to realize how much every little aspect of our lives has impacted how we continue on with our life from that point on. We would just try to tap until we got that 8 or 9 to a 0 if possible. And then you might still not like the situation, but at least it wouldn't be affecting you physically the way that it had been. So holding on to the emotion is what causes the problem. So
we were tapping. I noticed for myself that it felt easier just in the simple exercise of somebody repeating my own words back to me, that there was an acknowledgement in that which helped me with the overwhelm and the resentment. It was like, okay, somebody has heard my point of view. And so I could really feel the strength and the intensity of the feelings easing in that.
Well, that's great. And I often will have clients say to me, "You get this right on the money. I don't know how you know that." And I just laugh because really I'm using their words, but we don't really hear ourselves with our issues because we've been taught it's not polite to talk about, or it's our feelings don't matter, whatever our truth is around that. Sometimes just like you said, expressing it and having someone validate it and acknowledge it is enough to shift that energy for you.
Yeah. So, Catherine, if there are people who are listening to this who are in the situation that we're talking about, or another situation which might have resonated as you were talking, if they were interested in learning more about the work that you do in this area, or they were interested in talking to you, what is the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me, especially because of time zone differences, is probably by email. To get me, you can just contact me at cturgeon, TURGEON 1953 @gmail.com. Please include your contact information, where you live, in case especially of a time zone difference, and the best time to reach you. And I would be happy to get in touch to set up a time for a complimentary consult to discuss how we might work together. It might be something that you can just get a couple of sessions to learn how to do for yourself, or it might be some deeper work where you are holding on to some core beliefs that are not serving you and you want to work on shifting that. I do work with people all over the world. I see, in quotes, I see clients in person, by phone, and on Skype or any other internet face-to-face method that we can work together on. I'm happy to discuss really in depth what the possibilities are and to find out exactly what you think is going on for you so that we can come up with a plan on how to improve your emotional roller coaster so that you can move forward with a much happier life. And it'll be more satisfying for both involved, actually.
Well, Catherine, it's been really interesting to talk to you today. And on behalf of everybody who might be listening to this, I'd just like to thank you so much for being so generous with the information that you give and for your offer to do that consultation with people to see if there's anything that you can help them with. And I wish you every success with your work with people. And I know it's making a huge difference not only to the people who are offering support to elderly or ill people, but also to the people that they're taking care of. And I'd really like to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, because I know that with 4.4 million people in the caregiving role in the United States alone, that if even a handful of them were feeling healthier and more satisfied in the role that they're in, that we would have a much happier place. So thank you again for being open to listening to this, and I look forward to helping others to get to that same place that I have come to know to be a great place to be.